We have sent our reporters to explore our beautiful country. So this hour, I'm joined by Lethiwe Mdluli, who is outside Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. Mawande Keswa is in Richards Bay, and Monique Motlok on the road in the Northern Cape, heading back to Cape Town. So let's start with you, Lethiwe. As we move into the summer period, KwaZulu-Natal has obviously a lot to offer for those wishing to take a break. Ushaka Marine is just, one of the province's many sites that attract hundreds of local and international tourists. Are things picking up there in Durban?
Well, Clement, we were at the Ushaka Marine World a bit earlier on, where the launch of Tourism Month was taking place, and I was speaking to the mayor of eThekwini and also Durban Tourism about what they are expecting to happen since they were launching this Tourism Month. And what they were telling me is that Durban is actually open for business. They are hoping to attract more tourists coming into the city. We know that Durban is South Africa's playground, but over the last year, that has not been the case. A lot of events that Durban hosts have been postponed or cancelled because of COVID-19, because of the unrest that the city experienced in July. So right now what the city is doing is trying to rebuild and attract more tourists into the city. I'm now standing outside the Moses Mabhida Stadium, and this is one of the big businesses in the city that attracts a lot of events and also a lot of tourists, and it generates a lot of revenue for the city. I'm going to be speaking to the acting head for Moses Mabhida in a short while, but at the moment there's actually a match that is being hosted here, which is actually something that has not happened in a long time. And I'm going to ask sho't to basically elaborate further on some of the effects that the pandemic has had on the stadium. How has Moses Mabhida been affected over the last year?
Yes, Moses Mabhida has been affected quite badly by the pandemic. As you know, we are one of the biggest hosts of mega events from the football point of view, as well as social events in terms of concerts, etc. From a football point of view, we are hosting matches, but obviously due to pandemic, the number of matches that have been hosted in the past year have declined compared to previous years. Those that we have hosted, as you know, we are unable to have spectators, and that has resulted in a negative impact in terms of the revenue that we generate out of those events. For example, we had a serious knock in terms of our hospitality sales. We couldn't activate any public catering, so that was another serious impact in terms of our revenue generation stream. We have suite holders that were unable to activate their suites. That is also another revenue decline in terms of what we accumulate when we host these events. And obviously we have contractual obligations with some of the partners that could not activate. We have pouring rights partners that we could not activate during those events. So we have seriously been impacted negatively because of this pandemic as a stadium. Over and above, if I may just elaborate as well, outside of events, football, you know that we also host, as I indicated, non-sporting events like your concerts. During the pandemic, due to National Disaster Act, we couldn't have any social gatherings, and so we received a lot of cancellation of those events. That is also another revenue stream for Moses Mabhida, where we have seriously had a negative impact in terms of our revenue that comes into the state, or we generate and contribute to its eThekwini municipality. We still don't have events in our calendar, but we are hopeful that as things start to ease up, and when we're looking forward to the reopening of the country as the pandemic, as now we have started rolling out the vaccination, we are hoping that we will start to see more booking of events coming in line with the regulations that will be obviously put in place at the time.
Now, there is a match that is currently taking place at the moment. I know there's no spectators, but you do have future plans in place, hoping that you will have spectators so that Moses Mabhida can get back on its feet.
Yes, certainly. We do have a match that is taking place today just across at the main pitch. It is AmaZulu. They are playing their first CAF match. We are hosting it behind closed doors, as I indicated. It's such a pity we miss our fans. We are losing on any other commercial activities other than the fact that we have a venue hire that we had to engage with the club. But yes, we are looking forward to the match. All the compliance and in terms of the regulations that are put in place, we have make sure that the stadium is fully compliant, and we are optimistic that the match will go as planned.
And in terms of job losses, were there any people that lost their jobs because of this?
Certainly, in the industry, if you look at in terms of the industry, we are supported by SMMEs who come during matches to activate and sell to the spectators. They are unable to support their families because they can't come in such in situations. We have had contractors, as I indicated, who support us during events that are contracted to the stadium, and unfortunately they can't come through and we can't activate their services because it's a closed match. We don't have spectators. So there's a lot of businesses that we support as a venue by hosting events that have been negatively affected financially by this pandemic. So we really are looking forward to a time when we can start to have spectators coming in, so that our partners and stakeholders that work with us during hosting of these events can start to benefit from the venue.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So, Clement, that's one business, a very big business here in Durban that's been very badly affected by the pandemic. Like Mrs. Jabulile did say, is that a lot of people have lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic and the fact that they can't host any matches with any spectators. I was also at the Durban ICC a bit earlier on where I spoke to the marketing manager there. That venue has not been able to host any international events, and because of that, a lot of people lost their jobs. So it's looking a bit bleak here in Durban, but the city of Lethiwe did say that they are rebuilding and hoping that as the country gets vaccinated, a lot of people get vaccinated, it might actually open up.
Yeah, Lethiwe Mdluli, thank you so much for that update live to us from Durban. Let's bring in our other reporter now, Mawande Keswa, who is in Richards Bay. Mawande, thank you so much for also making time. What are some of the factors that might have affected tourism in the province largely?
Dear Clement, well, one of the main factors is COVID-19. COVID-19 has pretty much ripped through the industry and other various industries. Then we move on to the recent unrest that we saw. That cost the tourism sector at least 280 million rand. That really put a further dent into the industry, and the industry was somewhat on an upward trajectory where it was recovering. You may recall during the Easter weekend, which we were able to have this year, occupancy rates were over 75% within the province itself, and that pointed towards a recovery. You will recall that there were other hotels that had been closed, such as the Maharani. However, it opened during that Easter weekend. And when we did speak to the MEC for Economic Development in the province, Mr. Ravi Pillay, he had indicated that the industry really was recovering and they had put measures in place to try and assist it. Now, the province of KwaZulu-Natal, under the auspices of Premier Sihle Zikalala, in conjunction with the Department of Health, have come together again and said, let's try and see what else we can do to try and boost the tourism sector. And they launched the province's first drive-through vaccination site, which is centered in Richards Bay. Richards Bay is in the middle of a number of tourist destinations, such as Lethiwe Park, to name a few. You've also got St. Lucia. We did manage to speak to the Premier on this launch, and this is what he had to say.
Well, what have affected the tourism in particular, it will be the lockdown, then the unrest. While we condemn the unrest, but the lockdown have affected the tourism industry. It will get back as soon as we get vaccinated, as soon as we get more people going around the province, visiting and going for hospitality. That's where we will see the tourism industry becoming booming again. You will know that the tourism industry in KwaZulu-Natal has always been dependent on domestic tourism. So when we get more South Africans vaccinating. That will then encourage them to go around. But more than that, we will be able to lower the lockdown if we vaccinate, and then be able to go back to our normal life.
Mawande, how critical is tourism in the KZN province?
Clement, it's a major industry. It's a major contributor to the GDP. If I may give you a picture, for an example, you've got the city of Umhlathuze. You've got Richards Bay, where we are. Richards Bay is the second biggest economy after Durban. Largely, it is as a result of the tourism sector. They are centered right in the middle. If you're coming from Durban, you're heading up to, for an example, you're going to Mpolozi Park, you're going to pass Richards Bay, and it is a city where there are a number of amenities. They have a harbor, which is the deepest harbor that we have, and they are central in that regard. So the tourism sector really does play a critical role. We did speak to the mayor, and these are the sentiments he shared.
We encourage people, firstly, to vaccinate, because it's important that we start here to encourage our own citizens to come out, vaccinate, and so that they themselves start contributing to the economy. But also, as you've said, the area in which we are between the border of Mozambique and then in the north of Durban. We are the biggest economy in the northern part of Durban, in part because of the tourism industry. So it is a critical industry which we cannot leave unattended to.
All right, thanks for that, Mawande. Let's move over now to our reporter, Monique Motlock, who is in the Northern Cape for us. Monique, the pandemic also affecting tourism across that province. How bad has it been in parts of the Northern Cape?
Yes, it's been incredibly devastating for the Northern Cape, just as in other parts of the province. But here in the Northern Cape, many of its rural towns, in fact, most of its rural towns rely on tourism and that income that visitors, whether it be domestic visitors or international visitors, bring. Just an example, in one of the towns we visited in Rimfasmark earlier today, they have, it's a tiny town with very few residents, but the residents themselves are responsible for the recreational facilities in Rimfasmark. The big draw card, of course, is the natural hot springs in this town, and built around it you have camping sites, chalets, and all different types of amenities. And the residents work at these facilities. They are responsible for the upkeep, and they benefit from the income that they get from visitors visiting the hot springs or the chalets or any of the other recreational facilities. And as one resident explained to me, this is tourism is a lifeline for them, and that's why it's so important for them to get more visitors in, especially domestic travelers, your visitors from other parts of South Africa, because they've been getting or a few international visitors have been trickling in. We also visited the Ougrabis Falls National Park, one of the biggest tourist attractions here in the Northern Cape, a natural gem, and even they've been impacted quite severely to a point where they've seen a steep decline in the income that they would usually get from international visitors when you're looking at conservation fees. Let's take a listen to what Park Manager Angela Isaacs had to say when we spoke to her about the impact that the pandemic has had.
We really had a bad knock, and I know we're not the only ones, but it was a global trend. But especially at the park, currently we can still feel it, especially now with the flower season in the Namaqualand area, July, August, where we normally also have the spin-off. Currently we have beautiful spin-off of our domestic or South African visitors, almost an increase of 42-43% in our conservation fees for July and August. And unfortunately for our international visitors, we show a decline of almost 92% on the income coming from conservation fees only.
So Monique, how has the park been promoting its business during these tough times?
Pretty much the same way as Northern Cape government and Northern Cape tourism have been doing it, using social media, punting their province, selling it to other locals in other provinces, and more so selling the point that here in the Northern Cape is where you'll get tranquility, you'll get vast open spaces, you'll get the peace and quiet that you need, especially for those who've still been feeling that cabin fever that lockdown has caused for many families. And the other point they also emphasize is that here's a variety of natural landscapes and also many things that you can do that's free. Just looking at the views around you, it's free, and they've also been trying to package it around domestic tourists and getting special discounts for those tourists. This is what Angela Isaacs had to say about how they've been trying to attract the locals.
I think what counts in our advantage was the fact that with the pandemic and with COVID, people almost like wanted to come to areas where it's safe and where their health doesn't be negatively impacted. So when people come out here, they tend to take off their masks. And whenever we reminded them that it's COVID protocols, they're telling us, no, this is a safe area, it's a park, we won't get COVID. So what we did is that we found other avenues like social media. We went on different various avenues just to promote the park under our local visitors, and it definitely spun off.
All right, thanks to all of you. Monique Motlok in the Northern Cape, Mawande Keswa in Richards Bay, and Lethiwe Mdluli in Durban.